As the new NBA season approaches, Tyler Herro projects to be the Miami Heat's lead ball handler and shot creator. Pat Riley failed in his pursuit of acquiring a superstar talent this summer. Instead, he's settled on the addition of Norman Powell. However, if Miami wants to get the best out of Herro, they must give him another teammate capable of handling the rock and initiating some of the offense. In a July 30th article, Dan Riccio of Hot Hot Hoops pinpointed Drew Holiday as a logical trade target for the franchise. Holiday is a proven winning player, two-time champion and all-defensive caliber guard, Riccio wrote. He is also still an efficient and capable outside shooter that can provide some balance to a Tyler Herro-focused backcourt. But his contract and age could pose as an issue in any negotiations, despite the pedigree Holiday still brings to the table. Holiday is a versatile talent at the guard position. He can operate as a lead ball handler, secondary scorer, or plug gaps in the overall rotation. Furthermore, he's one of the best guard defenders in the NBA and knows what it takes to win a championship. It's unclear whether Holiday would be available for trade, though. He was shipped to the Portland Trail Blazers earlier this summer, and at first glance, it would appear that Chauncey Billups plans on integrating him into the rotation. Bam Adebayo speaks on Heat's new additions. During a recent discussion with Anthony Chang of the Miami Herald, Miami's star big man Bam Adebayo shared his thoughts on the Heat's offseason moves. "It's a very good shakeup for our team, and now there's a different dynamic to it," Adebayo said when addressing the media on Saturday, August 2nd. "I feel like Norman is one of those guys who floats under the radar. But as you saw this year, he's really shown that he can be an all-star caliber player. You've seen what he's done, and you've seen him grow in this league. And obviously, he wants to take the next challenge. Obviously, the next challenge is being with the Miami Heat. So I'm happy to have him." Overall, the Heat have added Powell, Simone Fontecchio, and Kasparas Jakušionis this summer. They've also re-signed Davion Mitchell on a 2-year, $24 million contract. Adebayo will undoubtedly be excited to get back to work with a new-look Heat roster. Nevertheless, a potential addition of Holiday would take Eric Spoelstra's team to a new level. He'd expected to be done making trades. In a recent episode of the Zaslow Show 2.0, NBA cap expert Bobby Marks suggested that Miami could be done making trades this summer. "I mean, listen, we're going to see probably within the next couple of days, Beal become available in free agency," Marks said. "I think the Norman Powell move eliminates that as far as what they need. They're a little bit below the first apron, so they can go out and sign a minimum guy if they want to do that. But I'm not anticipating another big move." If Marks is correct, we won't see Holiday or any other talent heading to Miami this summer. Instead, Spoelstra will make do with the roster at his disposal. Whether that will be enough for the Heat to contend in the Eastern Conference will remain to be seen. The Miami Heat are rare in the sense that they do not want to bottom out and rebuild from the ground up. They prefer to remain in the fringes of the playoff picture at the very least, and at present, they are remaining semi-competitive, hoping that the next star that becomes available deems the Heat to be the team they want to play for. Their moves this offseason certainly suggest that they're going to gun for a playoff spot in the coming season. And it's difficult to fault them for the trade they pulled off to bring Norman Powell in. All the Heat had to trade to acquire a 20-plus per game scorer in Powell were Kyle Anderson, Kevin Love, and a second-round pick, making it a no-brainer. Powell may not be the piece that takes this team from good to great, but he's an incredible piece to have for a team that did have its fair share of offensive struggles this past season. He was one of the most efficient scorers in the NBA last year, taking some of the heavy scoring burden away from Tyler Herro. The Heat have shown in the past that remaining semi-competitive and waiting to strike at the right time could work. They only need their Jimmy Butler-caliber player to set things in motion for their contending dreams. But that may not happen until the 2027 offseason, when stars such as Giannis Antetokounmpo and Donovan Mitchell could, in theory, hit the open market. Nonetheless, there is a move they must make that is staring the Heat franchise in the face. Terry Rozier should have played his final minute for the Heat already. When the Heat traded for Rozier in 2024, the combo guard was in the middle of a career season for the Charlotte Hornets, averaging 23.2 points per game on 46/36/85 shooting splits. Miami needed a boost at the guard positions during that time, with Kyle Lowry being a shell of his former self already. Little did the Heat know that they would have been better off just keeping Lowry and the 2027 first-round pick that they gave up to bring Rozier in. Now, this is not to say that the current version of Rozier is a worse player than Lowry is. But it's debatable as to whether or not that roster spot would be better off being designated for someone else rather than Rozier and his declining play while making $26.6 million in the final year of his contract. $24.9 million of that is guaranteed, removing the option of waiving him from the equation. Of course, Rozier can still bounce back. He's just 31 years of age, after all. Players who were as productive as Rozier was just 2 seasons ago always have that potential to return to form still, especially when they aren't in their late 30s and haven't exactly been plagued by injury problems. However, what further complicates matters is the fact that Rozier's off-court troubles may be worse than his on-court decline. Rozier is currently being investigated for his involvement in a gambling scandal that occurred in 2023, and although he has not been officially charged with any wrongdoing, it's always worrisome for any NBA player to find himself involved in such a thing. Rozier's NBA career is simply on a sharp downhill trajectory. His 10.6 points per game production on 39/30/85 shooting splits is not doing him any favors as well. Simply put, the Heat should do everything in their power to trade Rozier away to make the most of his $26.6 million expiring contract and keep adding players who could aid in Miami's goal of hanging tough in the Eastern Conference playoff picture. Perhaps the Heat could dangle Rozier in a trade for Boston Celtics guard Anthony Simons. Simons' contract is also expiring, but the Heat could be a team that ends up deciding to pay Simons big money on his next contract. Maybe the Heat could acquire Dillon Brooks from the Phoenix Suns. Brooks is a hard-nosed defender who fits Heat culture to a T, and Miami expressed interest in the enforcer in the past. What if the Heat acquire someone like Colin Sexton and send Rozier back to his home, the Hornets? Sexton is someone who hustles and puts in the effort, and he could combine with Davion Mitchell to form an annoying backcourt to deal with. Simply put, there are many options the Heat have to explore when it comes to dealing with Rozier. But one thing's for sure, they have to start next season without him on the roster. The Miami Heat and Philadelphia 76ers have uncertain futures for vastly different reasons. The former simply isn't sure if they have the star power needed to contend, while the latter isn't sure if their leaders can stay on the floor. Not only are the organizations linked through this, but also in a blockbuster trade proposal. The Sixers sending one of their all-stars to the Heat would give both front offices a level of clarity, as Miami would go all in on chasing a title while Philadelphia could begin building with their young core. Paul George injury update raises questions about Heat trade connection. All-star forward Paul George played 41 games last season, so his injury concerns in Philadelphia are already well documented. However, matters were made worse when Clutch Points reported George is out for the start of training camp and may not play in the preseason. Too early to tell there. Most of the Heat fanbase wouldn't mind the front office vaulting the team back into the tier of contenders in the Eastern Conference, but it preferably wouldn't happen by adding George. Still, PFSN linked George to the Heat by listing Miami as a landing spot for the 9-time All-Star. The article suggests Pat Riley and company would see great value in his veteran presence and two-way impact. While the 35-year-old Sixers forward does possess these attributes, he's only valuable to the Heat if he's consistently on the court.